Well, good afternoon everyone on this June 28th. I'm somewhere north of Park City right now in the back alleys of the Wasatch, you know, like where you got these sort of foothilly type areas behind the Wasatch, or at least behind the Wasatch from my perspective from Salt Lake City. We already got this shrubland that's primarily dominated by, of course, Artemisia tridentata, or big sagebrush, which, I mean, didn't explain why this is Artemisia tridentata. It's got the classic three-toothed Artemisia tridentata leaves. And yeah, just obvious. Sometimes you just know. It just is, right? We also got this, I believe, Symphoricarpos rotundifolius, or maybe oreophilus. Not sure how to tell the two species apart very well. Some people aren't even convinced they're separate species, but also known as the Roundleaf Snowberry, which you see, fairly commonly in these shrublands when you get these higher elevations. There is a somewhat higher rainfall than you'd normally expect for your typical sagebrush shrubland. And of course, we also got some Quercus gambelii, which I'm sure you'll see more of. It'll be kind of a rich neighborhood I'm hiking through, but let's see what else we find today. Found ourselves in this sort of small forest of Quercus gambelii, which is actually pretty common in the sort of back alleys of the Wasatch. These trees that never get taller than like 20 foot tall, so maybe more a scrubland might be a more proper term for it, but it seems like it's a bit more speciose, a bit more biodiverse than what you typically find in the Wasatch mountain brush areas. About 6,500 feet in elevation, or about 1,900 meters. Some more of that Symphoricarpos rotundifolius as an understory component here, as well as some, that might be a Chrysothamnus viscidiflorus. I'm guessing that because of the way its leaves are twisting and curly. I thought it might be Gudierrhizia cerathrya for a second, but it doesn't seem to be much of a subshrub of that plant. Look how twirly those leaves are. Really cool feature of the plant. But otherwise, it's a fairly common habitat type. I'm not necessarily saying it's more intact in these sort of Wasatch back alleys, but it definitely seems like there's more species. Probably just because there's more rainfall. There's certainly been a lot of development in this region of Utah. It's probably one of the fastest developing parts of the state. You always gotta love the Lupinus, argenteus, or maybe it's Siraceus, or perhaps even Caudatus. They're three very similar species that, I've never heard any doubt about them being separate in the literature, but there might be some people who question it. I promise I'm going to try and learn how to tell the three apart. They're a little bit tricky in botany terms, maybe not the most tricky, but either way, they're very common throughout the state of Utah. I think especially argenteus you can find like in foothill areas, as well as in high elevation forest. And lupines are just wonderful all around. They're palmately compound leaves. Got fine coating of hair which you may or may not see with this camera. Hopefully I can one day get a macro lens. And again, it might be hard to do macro shots and landscape shots like this at the same time. And just look how beautiful this place is. That might be I'm guessing it might be a Tetradymia canescens. Interesting place to find that species here. Looks all like your typical Tetradymia flowers. It certainly isn't a sagebrush, that much is for sure. And canescens is one Tetradymia species, or at least one of them, that you generally don't find in salt desert type habitat. Wow, it just got dark again. I love filming in partly cloudy weather. It's the best. It really keeps you on your toes. But yeah, again, I can't confirm it right now, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Tetradymia canescens. Very toxic to sheep. Oh, look how nice this is. It's either a beaver dam or beaver dam simulation. I could look for evidence of beavers around here, but I'm not sure I'd find it. I was definitely looked there chewed up by beavers. Huh, how nice. A really tiny creek, I believe, feeds this pond. And beavers are so cool. I'd like to one day see one, like in the flesh, not to see the evidence of them, like the chewed up stems and stuff like that. Places like this always make me wonder, how long has this feature been around for? How long has this pond been slowly filling up with sediment? How deep of a canyon was it, or maybe more ravine would be appropriate, before this dam was built? And what will the community here look like in 10, 20, or maybe 100 years, given how much dirt and loose, unconsolidated sediment there is on these slopes? I imagine it's filling in fairly quickly, but you never know. Looks like it might be the beaver's proper home there. There could be an entrance right there. How neat. If this is all man-made, I'm gonna be really embarrassed. Look how nice and tall this Gambel Oak forest is. I had to turn my ice up to like 1,200 here. Of course you got or maybe not of course, it's a bit strange to find a Populus tremuloides in a Gambel Oak, but you do also get lots of groves of Quaking Aspen in the back alleys of the Wasatch. Just off on hilltops or I think north-facing slopes, which is definitely not what we're on right now. I'm pretty sure a south-facing slope, but whatever. Lots of cool stuff. At least if you're easily amused like me. Now this is kind of strange. We got a spineless or nearly spineless variant of Opuntia polyacantha here. Might be a named variety, but I have no clue what it would be. And the only other one that's like this spineless that I know of, well actually it's even more spineless, is Opuntia aurea, although that's definitely not what this is. That one's restricted to a small region around Kanab. But man, that's so interesting. And it's not just a fluke either. There's a few others I'm seeing like this. In fact, all the ones I've seen, which is not much, have been like this. Like just check this out, for example. Well, that one actually does have some spines on the top, interestingly, but most of those petals got nothing to speak of, or they're really short. It's another one. So weird. That's gotta be one for INAT. Oh yeah, the beavers have definitely been busy up here. She must have been cut down a while ago, because these wood chips on the ground are pretty old and discolored. Not a fresh, pale color, but this old gray, very dry. That's what the tree looks like now. And we have, actually I believe it's a different beaver dam, 2 beaver dams down there. In such a tiny creek, I didn't realize they could thrive in such a small area. That's really interesting. Of course, beavers are herbivorous, and I think they can even eat wood sometimes. So, I mean, they use large pieces of wood to build their homes, but they also store more fresh young shoots and leaves for the winter. And of course, feed on it all summer long as well. They love members of Salicaceae, so they love cottonwoods and willows and aspens. So a lot of Quaking Aspen came down to build these guys' homes. How neat. Yeah, I mean, they really need to explain the importance of beavers because I'm going to do it anyways. They are ecosystem engineers, which means they build habitat, in this case ponds and wetlands, and throughout the life of the pond as they slowly fill up in sediment, support a whole host of different plants and animals. So they might be breeding areas for fish when they're young, probably not a lot of fish in this stream, but certainly possibly aquatic insects, then more marshy plants, and eventually wet meadow vegetation when it completely silts in, at which point the cycle may start over. It might build another dam even taller, or they might abandon the area and it might start eroding again, leading to better conditions for the beavers to start the cycle all over. I work on moving the camera around more as I talk about stuff like this to keep the footage interesting, though. Man, I love beavers. And if you didn't notice it earlier or I didn't show it properly, the road is just up there through what I believe is Promontory. Kind of hard to believe that this development isn't having an impact on the wildlife. So if the beavers are thriving, maybe it's not so bad. Yet at least. Not a big fan of how this tiny creek has been piped through this culvert here. It's not the best way to maintain habitat connectivity. I guess there's worse things you could have done, but bridges are better because, well, especially get an outflow like this is not very conducive for habitat connectivity for really small organisms like aquatic insects, snails, and even fish on a large scale. Again, probably not any fish in this habitat, but with larger culverts over larger streams, it can definitely be an issue. We don't really like that so much. Bridges are best for them, but either way, it's kind of crazy how much stuff a tiny little creek like this can support. I mean, this thing surely isn't even named, is it? I talked about last year, but you got some more of that Erythranthe guttata now. I embarrassingly forgot the name of it for a second. Got too much botany in my head. Or, I don't know, maybe too much other nonsense that's not important in my head. Distract me from what's actually important. Ah well, who's to say what's important? Oh wait, me I guess. Haha. Anyways, look how tall that dam is. really starting to wonder if this is natural actually. I mean, all the evidence points to it being done by beavers, but it's just crazy how much beavers are supported on this little stream here. And here we have what I believe is a great example of a beaver dam, or at least a series of beaver dams at the end of their life, completely filled with sediment. Look how big that drop is. It might be hard to see, but from those brightly colored grass looking things down to the water there, it looks like over a 30-foot drop, maybe 25, I don't know, but either way, it's a little hard to tell if there were ever beaver dams here, but I'm positive there was, unless there was some big landslide that created this. See, there's a bit of beaver activity here, but over time, beaver dams, as I say, completely fill in, leaving sediment piled high and deep. And it looks like there might have been a series of them here, considering how tall it is. Like, what beaver would make a dam this tall, right? But either way, as a result, you get this interesting habitat here, this permanent wet meadow, and a very steep drop off. It'd be pretty dramatic to call that a cascade, though it's certainly a pretty steep fall from the water at the top of there down to there. How incredible is that? Yeah, I guess I can't confirm this was made by beavers, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. It's a great example of how beavers can create a diversity of habitat types. You've got a whole wet meadow in this otherwise possibly just barely not semi-arid, or maybe it is semi-arid area because of beavers. You gotta assume that these wet meadows dominated by these rushes and sedges, fantastic grazing habitat for elk, moose, other species of deer, and smaller herbivores you can find throughout here. I wonder if this stream is like a spring fed. I highly doubt it's fed by snow melt for much of the year, because I think the highest point around here, the snow's got to be all melted by the start of June. These foothills don't get too high. Oh, look like there's a pond over there. How lovely. One of you guys have got to help me figure out what species this is, because I got no clue. Is it an old penstemon? Or is it something invasive? I have no clue, honestly. Looks really weird though. Got some cobbly barrens over here. I know the geology is volcanic from the Cenozoic. See the... it looks volcanic to be in the app rock says they are as well. Not sure what type of rocks they are though. I guess it says it's lahar brachias. Not sure how you pronounce that word, but a lot of sagebrush here, as well as the Petradoria pumila, the rock goldenrod. Must be a member of Senesioe, the tribe. Or Senesionae. Can't remember exactly what it's called. Can't remember what the rules for making tribe names are. But either way, oh man, look up there. Almost looks like a conglomerate. Lahar is like a giant volcanic flow, so it's probably just a bunch of, maybe it kind of is a bit of a conglomerate actually, a bunch of trapped rocks and sediments in the sort of volcanic matrix. But either way, I'm gonna head back now. I could go on for quite a ways on this trail. It goes pretty far, but some other things I want to see today. So thanks for watching, and see you next time. Remember, if you like these videos, please check out my channel. I got a lot more just like this.